Hey everyone! Given that it is February and the month of love, I thought I would do a little different video than what I'm used to doing, and that is a defense of the romance genre. This is something I've been passionate about from a very young age because romance novels were kind of my entry into reading, so they always hold a really special place in my heart. And the stripping of merits and hate that romance novels, adaptations, and novelists get is ridiculous. And it's directly related to a type of misogyny that you've probably started seeing and hearing way more about. The first step into understanding this complicated problem is understanding what is happening in the first place, mainly why romance novels and adaptations, movies, and the such get vilified. I'm sure we've all heard of the hate that befalls popular franchises like Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, True Blood, Outlander, or how about any of the Nicholas Sparks films? These franchises are seen as objectively bad. We hear people go on full-on rants about why 50 Shades of Grey is the worst thing to ever happen to cinema. Hell, when I was a teen, I remember watching an entire series of a man just reading the Twilight novels and bashing on them. We hear things like the writing of Twilight was so bad that the actors didn't stand a chance at even being able to make this into a good movie. And yet these are bestsellers. Millions of people have bought these books, and that's not an exaggeration. So we know that these franchises are selling ridiculously well. We know that people are buying these products. So what is the disconnect? Well, there's actually been a resurgence in the amount of romance that is being consumed by a general population. A lot of this is due to the fact that there are ebooks and Kindles and Amazon ordering of books nowadays, so people don't actually have to step into a bookstore to consume or buy whatever they like. This cuts down on a lot of those embarrassing purchases where you have to kind of keep your head down as you talk to the cashier. But why are we keeping our heads down in the first place? Obviously, a huge swath of the population is consuming the same material. And going by the Goodreads ratings, they're liking it. And I mean liking it a lot. There are people who buy merchandise about all of these franchises. And yet, no one I've ever talked to has ever admitted to actually liking the romance genre, chick flicks, or a Nicholas Sparks novel being their favorite movie. This has a lot to do with the fact that the romance genre is primarily written for and by women. When romance novels are criticized and outright vilified, a lot of the verbiage that is used has to do with a wife who wrote this was unhappy in her marriage, or anyone who reads this is not in a happy relationship or can't be, and thus has to escape to romance novels. Now, as someone who very much relies on escapism in the form of fantasy reading, this isn't necessarily a direct parallel. Fantasy I go to for magic and to figure about my own life. It doesn't mean that I'm unhappy with the fact that a dragon didn't attack my hometown last week. So where am I going with all this? Well, we see that there's a lot of hate being thrown at romance genre. We know for a fact that the romance genre is written primarily by and for women. We also know by statistics that women are on average the ones buying and consuming these franchises and novels and material in general. We also know that when people talk about these franchises, they're often using words like dissatisfied, trash, not good enough, a disgrace to the cinema genre, to romance, to writing in general, not being sophisticated enough, not being good enough, complicated enough, not being enough. Where does this stem from then? The concept that things made by and liked by women are inferior to those made by and liked by men is actually a concept that dates back all the way to pre-Bible era. There were publications as early as the 1600s that proved that men and women's brains were not actually different. However, the prevailing ethos of the time made it so that everyone kind of disregarded that notion entirely and continued to go along with their narrative of women being inferior and having brains that could not comprehend anything that a man would like or made his hobby. Thus, treating romance novels as inferior started as soon as romance novels came about, and they have been around for a very long time. Romance novels were seen as books for housewives, and as that has evolved, we see things like trash novels, guilty pleasures, beach reads, airplane reads, These monikers actually diminish the work and effort that gets put into creating these novels. And it makes it so that it seems like these are less than. They're things you just read on an airplane, or things you just read on a beach, or they're for certain people who are unhappy. They're for women. And that's kind of the crux of the issue, isn't it? They're seen as lesser. They're seen as not as good as actual novels. Hell, half the time, they're not even considered novels. They are considered romance books. That's it. And they're for women. And as far as chick flicks go, and rom-coms and rom-droms, there's not a very high male audience for those. And why is that? Obviously, there's a huge mass of the population who's enjoying these things, who is actively seeking out these items and buying them like crazy and getting merchandise for them. So why is it only one gender that we're hearing about? Why is it only one gender who's enjoying these things? And that question is at the heart of the issue. If this wasn't about sexism, and this wasn't about misogyny, if this was just because people don't like romance novels, then that question wouldn't persist. The question of why are there not more male romance novels and romance movie fans, at least out in the open? Because they don't want to be associated with something that's made for women. Does the phrase tomboy or not like other girls ring a bell? Yeah, that has to do with internalized misogyny. Women are perpetuating these stereotypes just as much as men are, and how they're doing it is by trying to distance themselves from other women, therefore creating a barrier on femininity. In the closet, though, a lot of these women actually do enjoy chick flicks. They do enjoy rom-coms, and they do enjoy romance novels, but they would never outwardly admit that. When we constantly have this information of romance novels not being considered novels or being a travesty on writing in general, we start to try and distance ourselves from what that is and what that entails. We like to say that we're not like that. We are not enjoying that. That's not made for us. Bad things? Oh, bad things could never be made for me because I like good things. I have good taste. So therefore, I must distance myself from that, and I could never admit to liking it, even if I did like that one time. Have you ever heard of people saying, oh, it's a rom-com, but it's not like other rom-coms. It's really good, I promise. This is the not like other girls mentality, and it's a form of conditioning that is put in place by a patriarchal society that is very misogynistic, and it makes women try to deny things that they genuinely like in order to be seen as having a good opinion or a worthwhile opinion. You can't just like that. That would mean that you have bad taste in movies. That would mean you have bad taste in books. That shouldn't be the case. We all have different opinions. Personally, I'm never going to pick up a historical fiction book. They don't interest me. It's not the kind of tropes I like. But the fact that I could, and if I did, I would still be seen as having a worthy opinion. But if I read too many romance novels, I'll be said that I'm not a bookworm or that I don't like books or I only like trashy books. What's with that? In fact, when I was younger, I used to vehemently deny the fact that I would read romance novels or watch rom-coms. I would say things like, oh, that stuff? God, no. I would never be caught dead watching Twilight in theaters. Yeah, I would. I absolutely would. And I did. And I would never admit to liking that. Even nowadays, I read so many romance novels, and I think they're very worthwhile and very well done. But I don't admit that to my coworkers. It takes a really long time and a lot of work and effort to disregard the not like other girls mentality. And I'm still working through it to this day. So I don't expect things to change overnight. All I'm saying is that when we're looking at romance novels and romance movies, maybe we need to ask ourselves how we're thinking about those things. Do we just not like tropes? Do we not like romance in general? Or are we saying that we don't like these things and that they're not worthy of being liked? Because those are two very different scenarios. One of them is stemmed in misogyny, the other is just an opinion, which we are all welcome to. The problem is that we need to start thinking about these things in more complex terms. We need to understand why we don't like something, and if it's just that you don't like it, that's fine. The problem is when we don't like something because we see it as lesser, and then we have to examine why we see it as lesser. Why do we consider trashy novels or trashy books on airplanes not the same as other books? When people are enjoying them, they're mass marketed. What's the problem there? Where is the hatred and dislike coming from? And once you realize this, maybe we can start to tailor our words. How do we talk about romance novels? How do we talk about rom-coms or rom-droms? How we communicate about romance sends a message to our children, our families, letting them know it's okay to like something. And it also is showing them that it's okay to like romance. Romance is a human emotion. It's a human thing that we go through. Everyone has been or will be in love at some point in their lives. So it's a common thing for us to feel. Why are we saying that a genre written about romance is not worthy? It should be communicated that liking romance is okay, and it's just another opinion. I may not agree with you, but that's fine. It's still a novel, you're still reading, and you're still enjoying yourself. At the end of the day, I think if we change this mentality, we'll actually see a really big surge in the quality of romance novels written, because suddenly it'll be okay to write romance novels. Your opinions won't be deemed not worthy, and your work won't be deemed as less than or inferior. All that is to say, in the month of February, approaching the Valentine's Day, maybe it's time to pick up a romance novel. You don't have to pick up a trashy one, you don't have to pick up a historical one or a contemporary one, but try something out. It might surprise you that romance novels are actually very varied. There's a million different things that happen in them, and they are as different as books are in the fantasy genre, or the sci-fi genre, or just the regular contemporary literature genre. The point is, give it a shot. And if you don't like it at the end of the day, that's fine. You've proven that that's not a genre for you. That's it for my little rant, guys. If you do have any questions about the kind of romance that I personally read or the romance that I look for, tropes I like and such, please leave a comment down below. I would be happy to have a discussion with all of you. I do love a good romance in any book that I read, so I have a lot of opinions on them. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video.